countdown. Good morning to you all. Some of these odd years are kind of noteworthy because off-year elections that take place, it doesn't get the attention that even a normal 2-year cycle would. The even number years, like a presidential election or midterm elections. And there were 3 Republican gains yesterday. We know of the governor in New Jersey. For what I could tell, it went to the Republican. I can't think of his name at the moment. There was an a special election in Ohio. Chantel Brown, the Republican, won. I know she calls herself a Democrat, but this Karen defeated Nina Turner several months earlier because of corporate Democrats and Republicans all cheated Nina Turner out of her rightful place as the Democratic nominee in that particular district. So Marcia Fudge's district, as far as I'm concerned, has been replaced with a Republican. She just happens to call herself a Democrat. Chantel Brown. The hell with her. And the hell with the Republican governor of Virginia, and the hell with Glenn Youngkin, the Republican elect of Virginia. And I'm going to focus on Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin because I live in North Carolina, and I grew up in a small town in northeastern North Carolina. When I was growing up, I lived about 20 miles from the Virginian border. I lived in Hertford County. I lived in a town called Hannity at that time. So it was about maybe a 25 minute drive to the Virginian border. And the radio stations, many of the television stations were from Virginia. So even though I was living in North Carolina, I had a taste of the news and the political culture of Virginia. In many ways, probably more so than in North Carolina. And I mean, my parents subscribed to the Virginian Pilot, for example, for the longest time. So, I'm kind of familiar with Virginia. It's statewide politics and all of that. But yep. What's his name? Ralph Northam. Which I'm kind of mixed on the soon-to-be previous governor, Ralph Northam, who was, in many, 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 many ways, too much of a centrist Democrat. However, a couple of good things happened under his gubernatorialship, which is why I'm concerned about the election of Glenn Youngkin. And it's a name that's going to be kind of hard to pronounce. Sorry. Well, I'm going to go... before I talk any further about it, I'm going to play you this video here. And it's from Mark Levin's program on Fox called Life, Liberty, Levin. Which, the only truthful thing about the title of the show, Life, Liberty, Levin, is the name Levin. That is apparently his last name. There's nothing pro-life and nothing pro-liberty about Mark Levin. He's not pro-life because he supported torture. He supports the death penalty. He supports every neocon war you can imagine. So the man's not pro-life, and he is against civil liberties. He's against anything that has anything to do with individual freedom, Um, and there's nothing that upsets me more than some right wing crank like Mark Levin who screams that they're for freedom and they're like the most authoritarian motherfuckers ever. So that was just my chance to have a nice little dig at Mark Levin. Nobody's more deserving of it than him. Anyway, give me a second here. And nope, right here we go. Right. Okay.
America, Glenn Youngkin. It's very interesting. Joe Biden ran as a candidate who said he was going to unify America. You seem to be unifying the citizens of Virginia, the Republican base, the Republican Party. A whole lot of independents have moved towards you, and even Democrats who appear to put their children in quality education ahead of this bizarre and very wicked ideology. And yet Terry McAuliffe, number one, denies it's taking place. Well, we know it's taking place. I mean, it's right in front of our eyes. And number two, as I said, he's bringing in a conga line of individuals who are quite radical and support critical race theory. What do you make of him bringing in all these career politicians?
Well, it's the clear playbook that Terry McAuliffe wrote because he really is the godfather of the modern-day progressive Democratic Party. I mean, this is what he does. He needs to take the spotlight off of his failed gubernatorial career. He doesn't have a plan for Virginia, and all Virginians know it. And so what he's trying to do is deflect all attention away from him and onto anybody else. And so he does. Anybody who has held office or even run for office and failed as a Democrat has been invited to come in and campaign with Terry McAuliffe. And Virginians are just flat rejecting it. They see through it. They know it's all a charade, and here we are in our campaign talking about the most important issues. We're on a 10-day bus tour. We're just finishing up as we head into Tuesday, and we're seeing thousands of Virginians come together and say, "Hey, Glenn, we're for the things that you stand for: low taxes, the best schools, the best jobs, safe communities, a government that works for us and stops telling us what to do all the time." And yet, we're seeing independent voters absolutely vote with their feet. We're seeing the minority community, the Latino community, come strong with us. That we were endorsed by the Hampton Roads Black Caucus. Democrats are walking across the aisle in mass because Virginians want a better Virginia. And they know that Glenn Youngkin's going to work with everybody in order to deliver that based on some fundamental kitchen table issues of low taxes, jobs, schools, safe communities. And this is what Virginians are voting for. What's most amazing is that these values are universal. They're not party values. They're Virginia values. And we talk about the Virginia promise that we can, in fact, deliver together. On the ballot is Virginia. It's Terry McAuliffe and big government control against Virginians' independence and liberty. And this is why we see so much momentum. The polls have had huge momentum in them. We're just racing by them. But, polls don't win elections. Votes do. And so we're encouraging everybody, please get out and vote. Get out and vote on Tuesday. And let's stand up as Virginians and make this happen.
Glenn Youngkin, they have hired Terry McAuliffe in his campaign, a lawyer, Mark Elias, who was involved in the Russia collusion issue, sort of the money guy between Hillary Clinton, the DNC, and the dossier that was put out. In other words, very, very creepy, very problematic. His colleague and partner was indicted for his activities involved in that. He set up his own law firm. Hundreds of millions of dollars in dark money goes into these coffers to help him defeat Republicans who've won races. Are you concerned about this, even if you should win, that McAuliffe, because he's not exactly an upright guy, that McAuliffe, now hiring this guy Mark Elias, are going to try to do everything they can to undo the election?
Well, first, this is just right out of his playbook. I mean, he wrote it, as I said earlier, and this is what a failing politician does when they see the sun setting on their 43-year political career. But he can hire as many lawyers as he wants. The Virginia voters are absolutely making a bold statement, and this is not going to be a close election. You can just see us pulling away. You can see us making a statement to not just win the governor's race, but the lieutenant governor's race with Winsome Sears and the attorney general's race with Jason Yards. We're going to win back control of our House of Delegates. We're winning local races all over, sheriff races, school board races. School boards matter. This is going to be a big statement, and a lawyer here and there that my opponent hires is not going to make a difference because this is going to be an overwhelming victory.
And I just want to underscore the point, people in Virginia. Polls are polls. If you don't turn out and vote, the polls could turn out to be wrong. So it's very, very important on Election Day that an army of patriots turn out and vote. This race is being watched all over the country. It's being watched in the White House. It's being watched by so-called moderates in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. And I do want to say this to you, Glenn Youngkin. You came out of nowhere. You have sacrificed your career. You've had to use a lot of your own money in this campaign in order to counter the Democrat money. You've run a hell of a campaign. And you brought quality education to the fore, something I've cared about my entire life. Quality education to the fore. You are the quality education candidate.
No, you're not.
And for once, finally, a Republican has taken that issue and run with it. Because the Democrats do not believe in school choice or quality education or anything of the sort. They believe in the teachers' unions because they represent them at the precincts. Any final words, sir?
Well, first of all,
Fuck you, Mark Levin. Long live the teacher unions. Long live the teacher unions. Fuck you.
Thank you for those very kind comments. When this all started, I had 2% name ID, and I think the poll had a 3% margin of error. So over the course of the last 10 months, we've had an amazing group of people around us. But this is about Virginians, and Virginians coming together, yes, around a fellow Virginian, who in fact is I have a moment to think about what we can get done. I am so optimistic of all the change we can bring, but we're also standing up for America. And so Virginia has a chance to lead like we have from the founding of this great country. And yes, Virginians, we have to get out and vote on Tuesday. Please come out and vote and make your voice heard. And let's make change happen, not just for the future of our great Commonwealth, but for the future of our country. And thank you so much for having me on your show. Everybody can join us. Everybody at youngkinforgovernor.com. And let's go get this done.
Well, for my sake and my family's sake and all Virginians' sake, I wish you all the best, sir, on Tuesday. God bless you and good luck.
Thank you so much. God bless you, too.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
Okay, first of all, let me just double down about Mark Levin. Fuck you, Mark Levin. Fuck you. Okay, now Virginia's been voting pretty much blue since 2008 for the most part. Prior to that, it was a Republican state for much of the 1980s, 1990s. Yeah, they occasionally had Democratic governors, but I'm talking about in presidential elections, it's been a reliably Republican state, and maybe purple when it comes to members of the U.S. House, U.S. Senate, and gubernatorialships, things like that. It's been considered a very conservative state for many years, where it's liberal tends to be in Northern Virginia, and around the D.C. area. And it's probably that area that's been carrying it over and turning the state blue in recent years. So, and some things have happened for the better. But I want to correct one thing that Mark Levin said. One of the many wrong things that Mark Levin and Glenn Youngkin were talking about with regard to Terry McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe is not a hardcore progressive. Terry McAuliffe is a corporate Democrat. He goes back to the days of Bill and Hillary Clinton. He was with the Democratic Leadership Council. If anything, he is almost a Republican. And that's the thing about it. I don't understand. Republicans are so fucking triggered by Bill and Hillary Clinton and anybody who's around their circles when Bill and Hillary Clinton and everybody in that circle politically are almost moderate Republicans on policy. That, they're pro-choice on abortion. Yeah, they support gay marriage today. They support some social progressivism that's not necessarily linked as economics. Sure, but that doesn't make people a committed leftist. Terry McAuliffe is not a leftist. I'm sorry, he's not a leftist. I want to get that straightened out. And the thing about it is that Mark Levin, who is one of the biggest Republican hacks out there, and he and Glenn Youngkin was sitting there trying to make it sound like that they're so broad and reasonable. Let me tell you something, and I said this before many times, that I do think that the Democratic Party in a lot of ways are garbage. But I'll tell you why I think the Republican Party is just a little bit worse almost every time. And that is that the Republican Party now is the political party of conspiracy theorists. They're the political party that accuse Democrats of being pedophiles. They accuse Democrats of being Satanists. I mean, it used to be that they will sit there and say, y'all a bunch of baby killers one day, or you're a bunch of socialists or communists the next day, even you're a bunch of terrorist lovers. Now they're accusing Democrats of being pedophiles and Satanists. You can't have a reasonable discussion with people like that. I mean, really, the Republican Party is the party of QAnon in this day and age. And this is why, as I said, I shit on the Democrats all day long. But you know what? The Republican Party is the party of QAnon in the year 2021. They're the party of conspiracy theorists. It's not even entertaining conspiracy theories like Alex Jones. I mean, they taken the worst aspect. They taken the shitty. Okay, the Republican Party today takes what is horrible about Alex Jones, but when it comes from Alex Jones, it at least is entertaining. But they managed to take that kind of kookiness and mold it into their partisan machine, where they smear their political opponents, and instead of being entertaining, it's downright scary and dark. I mean, we're talking about people who are extremely insane. But there are two issues. There are two issues about Virginia in recently this past year that I felt like they have taken a step for the better. Some area where I would have thought North Carolina would have been a little ahead of Virginia. With Virginia went and pulled ahead of North Carolina in this regard, and that is Virginia abolished the death penalty last year, and I think that is so fucking base that they went and abolished the death penalty because it's an issue that's very dear to me. I oppose capital punishment under any circumstances, and I do think that capital punishment is a crime against humanity. And anybody who calls themselves a supporter of liberty would never ever support the death penalty under any circumstances at all. They will never support the death penalty under any circumstances. And I favor the absolute abolition of capital punishment 100%. I'm sorry, this thing is... I'm concerned that Governor Youngkin could bring back the death penalty. I'm not quite sure if he could do it with a stroke of a pen. What the makeup is in the Virginia House of Delegates, I'm not sure how it could be, but I just hope that the death penalty do not come back and be reinstated in Virginia. So that's something that's going to concern me a great deal with this guy. Another area that concerns me just as much and maybe a little bit more, and it's an issue dealing with civil liberties. Last year, or this year, Virginia legalized marijuana. As of July 25th, you can buy recreational marijuana in Virginia. Now, I haven't smoked the stuff since 2007. Okay, I mean, I'm just saying it like it is. And I've thought about going up to Virginia and buying me some legal weed, just to say I can. Come back down here to North Carolina and make myself some cannabis lasagna. I've thought about it. And the day I do, I might actually show it on the video and eat some cannabis lasagna and have a nice bottle of wine and have a conversation with everybody. It'll obviously be in the evening when I do it. So I'll let you know if I do that. But the thing about it is, that's a step in the right direction to go and legalize weed. And I don't know if what kind of a Republican he is on that issue. If he's libertarian-esque, sort of, I might not have that much of a need of concern. But if he's another movement conservative Republican type, and he's going to be more of a Ted Cruz than, let's say, Rand Paul. I know they're senators, but I'm just giving you an example of Republican ideology across the spectrum. If he's going to be more of a Ted Cruz type, I have concerns. If he's more of a Rand Paul type, as far as weed in Virginia, that'd be okay. But the thing about it is, as I said, I'm very concerned. Another area where I'm concerned is the demonization that has taken place against critical race theory, and that was one of the things apparently he campaigned on, to make sure that there's no critical race theory in the classroom. And I have to keep saying this over and over and over again. Critical race theory is not preaching anti-white racism. If it was, I'd be opposed to it, because I oppose racism against anybody. White against black, or white against brown, or Christian against Jew, Christian against Muslim. I don't care. Just any racism, whichever way, it's going back. So yeah, racism against white racism against African Americans is bad, and I would say African American racism against white would be bad too, just as bad too. I don't care. We're all human beings at the end of the day. Critical race theory do not preach anti-white racism. It teaches that there are areas where racism still exists in this day, and it's not about political correctness. It's about aspects of life when it comes to the economic system and how it affects the demographics of this country. And people seem to not understand that. So I just want to have that clarified. Anyway, and so like a lot of Republicans these days, trying to paint critical race theory as either anti-white racism or Marxism or what have you. It isn't any of that. Not at all. I mean, in a way, it's not really an issue that I am passionate about as far as teaching it in the classroom, but at the same time, I do take an objection to referring to critical race theory as anti-white racism. It isn't that. And the right wing wants to use this to scare their base because they don't have any ideas other than God, gays, and guns, and lowering taxes, which when taxes are lowered by Republicans, it's not for you and me, it's for the wealthy 1%. But unfortunately, there are some Republican voters that will be like, well, if they lower the taxes for the 1%, that money will trickle down into my pocket. Yeah. Yeah, keep kidding yourself like that. But anyway, if you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with what I have to say, well, that's great. Comment anyway. We can have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As the First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. And I will conclude with a little bit of a musical interlude. And if there's anybody on the chat line here, we can have a conversation. Hold tight. And this is where I start to say goodbye to everybody until the next video. Okay. Good night.